YouTube? 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas. And what do we have here? Black diamond pigments. So, a little bit different intro. I hope you guys like the intro that we did for this video. Like I said in the previous videos, we're going to try to do something different. But essentially what we're doing is another marbling type of vase in today's project. So, picked up these pigments from Black Diamond. Absolutely love this product. The pigments I've typically use in a majority of my projects, and this one was a variety pack that I picked up on Amazon and decided that I wanted to do a black and white with a pinkish type color, and that initially was the goal. Also, if you order from Black Diamond and you order this variety pack, you get a cool sticker. I absolutely love stickers. I'm going to put this on the pressure pot right next to my Tanya Beecher sticker. If you don't know who she is, she's another woodworker on YouTube. She makes really awesome projects, so go check out her channel as well. But got the sticker on there, and now we're going to start the project. So turn on the bandsaw here, and if you watch the previous videos from the last couple of weeks, we've done these like firewood type projects where I put the firewood into an epoxy mold and just essentially turn that down, and we've been getting really cool bowls with that. But this week I wanted to do a different type of vase. We're going to use one of our larger buckets here. Got everything turned down on, or not turned down, I got everything cut up the way I wanted to on the bandsaw, and now we're just placing all the pieces nice and neat into the bucket, and we're going to go ahead and add the epoxy to it. So had a giant waste block there, as you saw, had all the pieces that I did like on the side, and I've done this, you know, hundreds of times at this point, and it was pretty happy how the wood was set up. So using the pigment, mixing it up really good. We're using East Coast resin on this one, as we typically will do. Nice cool pink color. Had the black pigment, going to add the white pigment now, and I get this cool grayish black marbling type of effect, and I'm thinking this is actually going to turn out really cool. So got this done. If you guys watched my YouTube shorts, you guys saw me do the pour. This part went really well. Was really happy with it initially, how it looked, and didn't have any real concerns. So 4.5 hours in the pressure pot. There was a note waiting for me when I opened up the top of the bucket. I messed up. I completely messed up on this project at this point, but we show failure on this channel, and I'm always about showing you guys everything that goes right and goes wrong when I do these projects. So cracking, as we typically will get, it's a deep pour, but the resin isn't designed, I assume, for deep pours, so there's a giant crack. Not only that, the waste block floated, the other pieces that we put on the side floated, and I had to come back, get more pink and black and white epoxy, mix that all up together, and I'm still thinking we can save this project, because yes, we've had projects with cracks, we just fill them in and they do relatively well. So this one wasn't thinking that we were going to have any kind of issue, but 4.5 hours later in the pressure pot, took it out. You can barely see the top of that waste block now, but the camera kind of doesn't do it justice, and I realize it's this orangey color. So it is a hodgepodge of colors at this point, and I'm thinking this is going to turn out so ugly. Orange, at least this color of orange, I don't think looks aesthetically pleasing, but you know what, we already used all that epoxy, so we're going to make something out of it. So getting the faceplate on there, and now we're going to get it onto the lathe so we can start turning it down. And I centered this thing so well. The spin, absolutely great. And here's a little montage of me getting all my equipment ready. Really liked how this looks, a little bit something different. So really liked how that turned out. So like I said, we're doing different things as far as videography on the channel. So hope you guys are liking that. But look at this, absolutely no wobble on this one. This one is centered absolutely perfect. So I'm pretty excited at this point, thinking, you know what, hopefully this turns out pretty well. Because usually when we do these larger projects, there tends to be a lot of wobble, but don't worry, that part of the video is coming. So here we go, using the larger round carbide tool, getting a lot of good material worked off initially. So now we're getting that bucket off of the blank, because it will melt onto the actual bucket itself. So we're never able to save these buckets, but next week we're gonna have mold release, and we're gonna see if we can maybe salvage some of these. But anyway, worked off that superficial layer, and the ribbons are coming off really well. I absolutely love how the shavings are coming off at this point. And here we go, slow motion. Absolutely love this shot. This is probably the best slow motion shot up until this point. And you can just see the ribbons just coming off in a nice steady stream. There's no shards of like glass or epoxy coming off like we sometimes will have. Just the ribbons are coming off so sharp in one single ribbon, and we're getting a lot of good web shavings off of this. And you can see all of that coming off. And just working down that bottom, getting a nice V shape for our project here. And you can see all the little shavings that are coming with it. Looks absolutely gorgeous. This is one of my favorite shots, so I hope you guys like this shot as much as I do. It just really shows how well the epoxy set up and just how easy this part of the project was. This part went really well, no issues, and by this slow motion you can see just how well that was. So now all we're doing is working down the material, getting our nice V shape like I was talking about earlier, coming back with one of the smaller carbide tools and just taking more layers off. I'm starting the lathe, stopping the lathe, trying to work it down to where the wood starts to show a little bit, and I can see the little speckles of dust from the wood that's coming off of it. So really happy with that, but just decided to work down more material so that we can expose that wood, so we can sand it down, and it gives the bowl a better aesthetic. And as you can see here, I'm staying away from the top of where the headstock is, because my biggest fear is getting a piece of that chipped out and it slicing my arm open. So really careful with that. So that's why I'm not shaving down the headstock yet, and we'll come back and fix that part up. And we're just continuing to work down the material as much as possible, getting that nice flat bottom so that we can start making a mortise here in just a little while. And this part went relatively easy. I'm just trying to get everything nice and flat at this point, taking my time on the chisels. And you can see the wood exposure there, and you can also unfortunately see one of the cracks that are there as well. But now we're going to start working off the lip of the bowl toward the headstock. And this was an accidental thing that I did. So you can see there that there's obviously more material on the top of the bowl, and it kind of like curves a little bit, so it has a little bit fatter lip on the outside. So I decided, you know what, instead of it making it flat, just to leave that curve in there and just work around it, but work off enough material to where it's even. Give the bowl a little bit different aesthetic, and you can see that by the thumbnail. So I was pretty happy with the lip of the bowl. Then I went back, started to make the mortise. This part went really easy, like I said in the previous video from last week. We try to keep it as small as possible so that the chuck barely fits and you get a better grip with it as well, which was going to be really important later in the video. So once we got the mortise to the size that we were cool with, took that base plate off, and you can see a lot of spin out there. So be careful, wear your safety equipment, because that bowl would have cut my finger open. But anyway, so now we're just making everything nice and flat before we start the actual gouging part. So I did this project on a Tuesday of the week, and it was like 103 degrees. I'm sure I've mentioned this in videos last week. It's 1,000 degrees in the state of Texas. So the camera will overheat in the workshop, so not a whole lot of the gouging was captured because the camera will automatically turn off once it starts to overheat. But the gouging part went a lot of issues, unfortunately. So once we started to gouge it out, I know by now, I've done enough of these projects that you really need to take your time when you do this, and getting a lot of wobble on it. So I'm having to stop the lathe, reset, tighten the chuck, and then just layer by layer slowly take this off. This might have taken me 3 hours, maybe more, to actually gouge this out. And those cracks that you saw earlier in the video from the blank, and then on the outside of the bowl there's also a crack. Once the deeper I got into the bowl, I had so much chip out and just cracks that were forming from me tightening the chuck, and decided, you know what, just to kind of, cut my losses. You can see some cuts there, but once we sanded it down and polished it up, you can barely see them. But we got to a nice depth. I like the shape of the bowl, but you can start to see the color there, and then there's all the shavings and how dirty the workshop was afterwards. So sanding, got the workshop cleaned up. Now we're just going from 340 all the way up to 1500. Really took our time with sanding. Sanding took another like hour and a half maybe. Just working that out, getting those cracks as fine as possible. Coming back, hitting it with the wood wax. You can really see the aesthetic of this bowl once the wax seeps into the wood, and I used a copious amount. If you're doing these projects, really hydrate your wood. You really get to see the grain, and it turned out absolutely beautiful. Even though I call this one the Ugly Vase, it still turned out better than I thought. So we were initially going for a pink and black and white type marbling for this, but it turned out pretty good. I think it's ugly, but I mean, it still looks beautiful in my opinion. So you can be both. You can be ugly. It's so ugly it's beautiful, essentially. The wood really pops. I love the grain on this one. You can even see a little bit of purple in there. I don't know how that happened, but the different multicolors in it make it look really aesthetically pleasing. So in spite of all the problems that we had, in spite of the color not being what we initially thought it was, this vase turned out pretty good. So overall, another win, another larger project that I think turned out really well. So don't give up on these projects. If you're a woodworker out there, don't give up. Keep going. Don't stop a project just because it doesn't turn out the way that you envisioned. But hope you guys liked it. Hope you got something out of it. Don't forget to subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Alright, so project is done. And this is a behemoth of a bowl. It is almost nearly as heavy as when we started this project, and we took off a lot of material on this one. And I'm sure I went through in the commentary all the problems we had with the gouging, the cracks that are in the bottom, but we still got a lot of space in this thing. So overall, lots of problems. So past 2 weeks we've put out some bangers, but even with the problems that we had on this one, this bowl still looks gorgeous. I still like the way it turned out. I like the aesthetic of the wood and the color, even though the color is completely not what we had intended when we started. But definitely a lot cooler looking than that pine board that we typically will put in there. But you can see the different wood grains, the smokiness, all that good stuff. I think once this wood wax dries, it looks really nice. It's just maybe the price to make it wasn't worth it. You can still see a little bit of that pine board there at the bottom. I got to the point where I was getting so much cracking at the bottom. What I was concerned about was that on the bottom, when I would put the mortise on there, that it would just, expand so tight once I started tightening the jaws that it would crack and fracture. I was worried it was going to fall off the lathe, but still a really good looking bowl. We salvaged it. We got something out of it. Still looks really, really good. So I will say this week's project turned out pretty good. So today is Tuesday, the 25th of July. You guys are watching this obviously on Sunday. I'll be driving home from Austin by the time you guys are watching this. So definitely got a project done for this week. It's 11 o'clock at night right now on a Tuesday. So it's 1,000 degrees. It's the only time I could get stuff done, and I needed to get this done before I took my trip. So hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. Obviously, format of the video changed up a little bit. We did a little bit different camera stuff, so expect more of that. If you're not already, go watch the shorts. You guys will see previews of stuff that we're doing. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope everybody's having a good summer. So, all right, peace.